to talk about my thoughts on the companion Druid, the PTR, after doing some testing and a little bit of pushing in the pits just to see, you know, what I could do. So first off, when it comes to pit pushing, I was clearing a 115 just fine. However, the Poison Creeper is ruining my pushing testing because at some point it'll inevitably will one-shot like 2 or 3 elite packs, and that kind of ruins the integrity of the push when you're actually, you know, when you're just getting like 3 elite packs for free every run because it's bugging and then one-shotting them, right? So that's, you know, that's pretty, you know, I think that's pretty darn important to, it's pretty darn important to think about whenever we're, you know, doing the pushing testing. So, but I do think 115 is realistic, and I think that once you have good gear, so once you have, you know, max Call the Wild ranks 3 on Invenom, once you have all the ranks to Storm's Companion, once you have all the ranks here, I think with maximum gear, you will see Companion Druid competing with the other Druid builds, and should be able to clear in the 120 to 125 range, you know, if I'm not crazy, right? Because if I'm able to do a 115 right now pretty decently with bad gear, I think it's very reasonable to expect that you can do a 120, 125 with really good gear. And I also think, and there's also another thing here, is that Storm's Companion, it's showing them up as a Storm and a Nature Magic skill now. However, they're still not functioning as a Storm or a Nature Magic skill. I was not able to get anything to work. So for example, I could not get them to proc Elemental Exposure. I did not see any damage increase whenever I tried running Thunderstruck on them. I could not get Constricting Tendrils to work. So I do think that they might be trying to actually make this the way it is, but maybe they just are still didn't code it right. There's a bug going on, so it's still not functioning correctly, right? So, and if that's the case, we are going to see another damage amp for them. We're going to see, and we're going to see a bunch of very interesting builds come out for the Wolf Druid if they do end up making it a Storm skill. Not only that, it's going to give us a lot easier access to Elemental Exposure. We'll be able to run things like Bad Omen, which will also give us access to running things like the Electrocute glyph, which would be another 20% damage, since we can actually get lightning bolts to come down and damage the enemy. So you're talking like, if this becomes a Storm skill, like 60% damage. Another thing you can also think about doing too is, I don't know how mathematically if this would work yet. I'd have to really crunch the numbers, but dropping Moonrage Aspect and then moving this here and running those Cataclysm gloves that give you the 80 to 100% extra damage while you have them, while Cataclysm is active, and then moving things over to, like, you know, Calm Before the Storm, and then trying to get some cooldown reduction on your Cataclysm, so you can see if you can get this down to like 100, you know, to where you can have it up, like, obviously not 100% of the time, but you can have it up like a really decent amount of the time, and if that would be better, I'm not sure. But it's just things to think about. There's going to be a lot of interesting text you can do if this does change things, does change this into a Storm skill. Now, and I know at the very least you also get access to Defiance, which would be another 12% damage amp. And I think Natural Disaster could be pretty good too. So you get an extra 24% here. Yeah, so that's all pretty interesting. Okay, so I'd say that's it for the overall power level. But yeah, so far so good. Poison Creeper kind of ruined my pushing testing, so it was really hard for me to see. But the best test that I got off was a 115, and I was progressing through it, and then Poison Creeper ruined it because it like one-shot 3 packs in a row, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, I was trying to see if I could get a run without the Poison Creeper bug proccing, and I almost had it, but then it got ruined towards the end of it, unfortunately. So that's all good though. All good, all good, all good. I think I'm pretty happy here. So. When it comes to the build, we're throwing Spirit Bond Aspect on now. This is going to give us 16% damage reduction, and our companions don't die. Well, when it comes to the defensive, I'm still testing between Cyclone Armor or Blood Howl. So because we have a limited slots, because we have to run 2 abilities now to make sure we get maximum damage on our wolves, you can put Aspect of Might here, drop Cyclone Armor, and then run Blood Howl, which I'm actually starting to think that might be the best thing, because you're going to get the same damage reduction that you would get from Cyclone Armor, and then you would also be able to proc Vigilance the most. Now, you could do Debilitating Roar and try to get the cooldown down, but I don't think you're going to be able to get the cooldown far enough because you can't run Bold Chieftain's Aspect, right? And you really don't want to drop Moonrage. I mean, like, I guess it is a little bit harder to get rolling whenever you're pushing because you have to kill things in order to get these to come out. But once you actually do get them to come out, your wolves do quite a bit more damage, so it makes it even more easier to kill things. So it's kind of like a train that you want to run. So if you're going to like drop this, you need to make sure it's for like a very, very big damage increase, and I don't think And I don't think we have that yet, unless, you know, like I said, we can do some weird thing with like Cataclysm or something like that, right? So that is something that's interesting to think about. And Bloodhowl, it has its own cooldown reduction, so it's going to give you the most uptime on Vigilance, which is really what I'm liking. About it. It also gives you a heal and some attack speed, which is cool too. But yeah, that's like the main thing where I'm kind of looking at Bloodhowl now. Next up, we still have Alpha on here. You can put Stampede on here, and your wolves will only lose 5% damage if you want to put ranks into Poison Creeper or Ravens. So keep that in mind with the way the math works out, because, you know, when you have like different ranges to work with, like it gets X to X, right? Versus, you know, this gets X to X, right? It actually, when you break down the math to see, okay, well, what's 1.5 of this and what's 1.5 of that, funnily enough, it actually only comes out to a 5% damage loss when you have all of your Moonrage stuff out for wolves. So if you wanted to try to put more damage on your Ravens and Poison Creeper and go the Zoo Druid route, it's actually going to be fairly strong and fairly similar to the Werewolf Companion Druid, which I thought was pretty interesting. I was kind of hoping they'd make Poison Creeper and Ravens a Nature Magic skill, because, I mean, how the hell are these not Nature Magic skills? But that's okay, whatever. But yeah, so we have Shepherds here, which means we move Stampede here, and then Moonrage here, and that's pretty much the changes to the build. I am trying out this Wild Bolt Adventurer's Boots, however, it only seems to pull in one enemy at a time, so I don't know if that is intended or what, but I really hope that this pulls in more, because if this is supposed to pull in more than just one enemy at a time, which seems to be what it's doing, it actually would function insanely well as a way to pull things in, group things up for you to be able to hit things with the wolves. And that's why I was using it, because it will actually pull in like some things, but it's just not pulling in as much. It's not like Air does, right, where you like activate your ult and all of a sudden everything gets pulled into the center. That's kind of like what I'm wanting out of these boots, but I don't know if that's the way they want these to work, right? But it also increases how much damage they take by 10% for 3 seconds, which is pretty good as well, another 10% damage amp, so that's something I'm also testing. The Wild Rush boots are pretty good. I mean, Metamorphosis boots for just so you have access to Unstoppable is also still pretty good. Another option too, Wild Heart Hunger to get 30% more damage, I think also might be end up being pretty good, might be ran as well. So a lot of boot options actually here, and you know, obviously Flicker Step if we do try to do Cataclysm shenanigans, if our wolves actually do end up making turning into Storm skills next season. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff going on with the Companion Druid. But anyways, guys, I think that's it. I think it's really going to cover my thoughts. It is looking fantastic, absolutely amazing. Definitely going to be an A or S tier Druid build for sure. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.